Hello, everybody. Welcome to All Things Writing. I am your host, Bryan the Writer. Admittedly, this is going to be a very different kind of show because this is not my normal fare. So I am going to have some writer interviews coming up. I promise. I will be doing some more videos about, writing different things in writing life and all that. But recently, I had an opportunity, and just back up a minute. I am, as some of you know, kind of a horror writer. Not kind of, I am. I like the spooky end of things, the weird, the strange, the unusual. Those of you who saw my earlier video will one of my earlier videos, I should say, one of my short videos is going to know that um, I I recently went to the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. I am finally getting around to doing the evidence video, where we talk very much, or we talk about what we found. Now, I do have some great pieces of audio that I caught. I caught a lot of audio. There's some times when I didn't catch quite what I wanted, but that's okay. I have the very last bit of evidence I have for you is kind of spectacular, to be honest. At first, I saw it and I went, "What the heck is that?" And then I went, "Whoa, that's amazing!" And it wasn't something I caught, which made it even cooler. It was something that my son caught while we were out there. Um, Now, I am going to provide you some information about the asylum itself. Please bear in mind that this information actually comes from their website. I am throwing it out there because I want to sort of dangle a little bit of information in front of you because I want you to go to their website. More importantly, I want you to go visit the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. The reason I really want you to do this, I'm trying to encourage people to go see this place, is for two reasons. One, it is a slice of history. Back then, this place was built a very long time ago, but when it was constructed, it was constructed to house the insane, the mentally insane, and that was the way things were done in the United States. There were several of these things built, by the way, and I think it's really cool that ultimately they were taken down. They're not used anymore, but uh, I think that it's currently privately owned. And when you visit, when you pay money to go on tours, that money that you're paying goes to support the restoration and the maintenance of the facility. And I personally believe it's really important that we're not letting these sort of icons of the past slip into the Never Netherland, and we never see them again. Um, Now, it's well worth seeing. The structure that we see today, it was originally built somewhere between 1858 through 1881. It has the record as being the second largest structure, or I'm sorry, the sec or no, it's the largest hand cut masonry building in the United States. That is, it's on record. It is believed to be the second largest hand cut masonry building in the world, second only to the Kremlin in Moscow. Now, that has not been proven, but that is the belief. It was really originally designed by architect Richard Andrews, and the layout was actually designed for light and air, light and ventilation. So it was thought to be therapeutic. So they wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to take advantage of. Excuse me, you would think I was still at the asylum, right? We were there all night, by the way. They locked us in there at like 11:30, and then we didn't leave until 6 a.m. So we had a good amount of time to conduct our investigations. It was awesome. Anyway, back to the details. Um, it was designed as a place of rest, recuperation, and a place where you could get back your mental abilities. However, as things happen, it didn't quite work out that way. When it was opened to 250 souls. 250 people lived there. At its peak in the 1950s, however, it had 2,400 patients. They were kept in very unsanitary and generally pretty poor conditions. As time moved on, the treatment of the mentally ill had changed dramatically, and we no longer thought of them in terms of we're going to warehouse them in these types of facilities. I think exposés on the conditions of these facilities are really what prompted. It's really what prompted the change in thinking, and they brought about this new idea that people could be rehabilitated if they were out in the world. So in 1994, as I said, this place was changed. This facility, the asylum was closed permanently. For better or for worse, they figured the mentally ill were better off out in society, taking care of taking advantage of social systems in place. However, I think there's a little bit of a pushback on that way of thinking because I don't think it quite deals with all of the problems out there. So you have a lot of people out there who just don't get any help because they're not being actually supervised the way they're supposed to be. There has to be, just as a plug for mental illness, there has to be a solution in between those two extremes. We don't want to torture people, but we also don't want them left to their own devices out on the streets where they cannot take care of themselves. Anyway, little plug. Mental illness is very, very important. So, uh, not all people who were living there were necessarily patients. There was a long period of time when nurses and doctors were actually, by contract, they had to live on site as well. Um, so they lived there and died in there, and in some cases, actually, inmates or the patients killed other patients. So it was kind of a bad situation for people to be in. Um, Now, there were also geriatric patients. So you kind of had everything from violent men to you had violent men, violent women. You had geriatric patients, so old, the very elderly. You had juveniles as well. At one point, you had sort of they were considered the most trusted of the patients. They're people who probably checked themselves in for a little bit of rest and recuperation. They had their own door. They could kind of come and go as they pleased. You also had people who were alcoholics and chronic gamblers. Some of our best evidence actually came from that floor, which was a ton of fun. Um, so there were children put there for a myriad of different reasons. There's a list of reasons that you could be put in there, and those reasons are pretty subjective. For example, if you were the husband of a wife and you decided she was reading too much, you could have her committed. I'm not making this up. It's sort of horrible if you think about it. Um, if you if you believed your child was masturbating too much, you could have them committed. There are all kinds of things that can happen that you can have somebody committed for. Reading too much, not reading too much, studying, being too religious could get you thrown in a mental institution as well. It's sort of horrible if you think about the reasons why they would throw people in there. Um, and children, that is deplorable. Little kids were being put in there. There was a child actually born in the facility, um, who named Lily, who was born and raised and actually died in the hospital itself. Unfortunately, we did try to get some evidence from that room, and we really didn't get anything. But there's a couple of theories as to why that is. My son brought up the point that a gazillion people had visited that room already that night that we did our investigation. So chances are very good that if there were any spirits there, they didn't want to talk to us because they were just flat out tired. But it was fun anyway. It was an interesting day to spend there. I think one of the most abhorrent things about the facility is this is where pretty much they institutionalized and made a factory of lobotomies. There was a doctor there who pretty much prescribed lobotomies for everything, and they did it by inserting they inserted basically a spike under the eye, and they hit it with a hammer, and that would sever that frontal cortex. The problem or damage the frontal cortex. The If you survive the surgery, okay, if you survive the surgery, you basically lost all emotion, and lost any kind of response to emotional stimuli. It was bad. It was pretty bad. Um, this facility has reputations that are both good and bad, and I think it's important to consider that some people went there and did rest and relaxation, and that was fine. There were people who were tortured and killed there. So there's good and there's bad in these facilities, even if it has that reputation. My team consisted of a fellow horror writer, fellow paranormal enthusiast, Bryan Grover. He does writes poetry and some great short stories and such. And also my son, Thomas Nowak. And you're going to notice on some of this audio I think I captured, there's some of my son's voice on there. He sounds almost exactly like me, so it's really hard to differentiate. It was sort of funny listening to the recording and going, wow, so that's what I sound like on a recording. But anyway, you'll notice that as we go into it. A little bit about our methodology that we used. We would go in a room and we would start our investigations with the deepest and utmost respect. In my humble opinion, I really don't like to see paranormal investigators going on site and provoking spirits in one way or the other. I don't think that's right. It's not. It's kind of not fair. It's sort of mean spirited, huh, pun intended. I wouldn't do it, and I don't encourage anyone to do it as well. At no point you're going to see us demand answers from anyone. We're not going to make promises to spirits that we can't possibly fulfill. We're not going to bring you back to life or whatever. One of them even asked us to find their grave, and I had to point out we wouldn't be able to find their grave because it's very dark outside, and we're not going to go looking for it in the dark. Um, you know, be upfront and honest with a spirit, if that's indeed what you believe you're interacting with. Most importantly, if you visit the asylum, I would highly suggest that you obey their rules. Listen to their rules very closely. Um, they're there for a reason, and they have guides that will assist you throughout your visit there. They did through our visit there. We had a lovely guide who helped us along, and I think that you can get something out of the experience that's, if anything, you get to explore a really cool historical building at night in all of its spookiness. Tons of fun. So now, as I alluded to before, what I have for you right now is a series of voice recordings that made while we were there. We have a ton of great audio clips. I'm only including the ones that I can definitely say cannot be connected to some sort of outside stimulus. I'll be honest, there's a couple of times when I heard something and I was like, oh, that's really, really cool. But then I thought about it and I'm like, well, that could have been someone else on the floor with us at the time, too. And I want to make sure we're not doing that. So you're only going to hear clips where we were the only people on the floor at the time of the recording. There's a whole series of clips that I got from Lily's bedroom Lily's room. It wasn't actually her bedroom, but Lily's room, that I had to discount because the recordings were made at like 5:30 in the morning, and trucks and cars started moving around outside. And I'm like, okay, I hear sounds, but there's all these vehicles moving around, and I don't know what those could be. Basically, if there was any way I could come up with a plausible alternate explanation for what you were hearing, I said, okay, we're just not going to use that. We had more than enough, believe me. There was a lot of really cool things that happened that night. Now, I am going to tell you that we have a last bit of evidence, and I'm saving it for you to the very bitter end. The reason I'm saving that to the bitter end is because it is probably one of the coolest pieces of paranormal evidence that I've seen. My son caught a shadow, and it is, from my perspective, irrefutable. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. You can disbelieve what I'm telling you. That's fine. When you see that last bit of evidence, I want you to keep in mind, and I'll remind you when we get to that bit of evidence, that as he was recording, he was panning, and as he panned with the camera, I was actually standing behind him, and I had to move a little bit to stay out of his shot because I didn't want to mess up his video. Um, but he caught a shadow in a room. Now, I know nobody was in that room. The reason I know no one was in that room is because immediately after he was done recording that, that's the room I walked into, and there was nobody in there. It was empty when I walked in there. So what did he capture? I say it's a shadow figure. In my mind, it's definitely that's what I saw. At least in the video, right? So stay tuned to the bitter end of this video, and I think you're going to enjoy it. All right, so let's get to our first example. So let me set up this clip by telling you, first and foremost, I have very mixed feelings about the quote unquote ghost boxes. I know people, paranormal investigators, who swear by them. Um, I get the theory behind them. The idea is that ghosts can, or spirits can manipulate energy fields and can make sounds out of electronic devices. Well, my son had one on his phone, an app essentially that he downloaded and he was using. And I have to admit that there are some evidence, there's some piece of evidence he caught that we're disregarding because they may have been relevant, but they were kind of inconclusive, so we're not really going to go with it. Um, However, what you're going to hear is you're going to hear me ask a question, and then you're going to hear the ghost box responding as well. And I thought it was very interesting because this was the very, very beginning of our investigation in what we referred to as the crib room. There was no actual name of somebody connected with that room. It was a place that I, as an empath, just sort of felt a heavy presence in. And so we started our investigation there. Okay, here we go. What is your name? Let's start there. Look at that go.
You're aware of me.
Yes, we are aware of you. Now, again, I'm not entirely sure how much weight I give the whole ghost box phenomenon, but I think at the end of the day, it's a very interesting thing when you're getting responses from that type of technology, and it seems to fit the questions you're answering at the time, the situation you're in. Now, this next clip that you're going to hear, um, it's not, at first, when I listened to this, I didn't quite know what I was hearing, and I have to admit that what cued me into it was not the thing I'm going to highlight, but was the thing before it. You're going to hear a man's voice talking. Now, I want to stress this. That was not a disembodied spirit or anything. That was actually the people, a few rooms up from us. I think they were in the hallway, and they just had they just happened to be looking at or facing the doorway. So it reverberated throughout the hallway. But what was interesting is if you listen very carefully, you can hear him ask his question, something responds. And I don't know that they heard it. We didn't hear it until we got home. and then if I could hunt them down and then let them know, hey, you guys should check this out. Anyway, listen to the very very end and tell me what you think. I think it was sort of interesting to hear a response that I'm pretty sure they did not hear. So okay, listen to this. So you may want to go back and listen to that again. He asks his question, and it sounds like a mumble because he is far away. And then there's a bit of a delay, and then you hear almost a noise. Now, I don't know what that was. I do know that there's nothing in there that we heard that night that made that noise. There was no mechanical. As a matter of fact, the part of the building we were in, the power's off. So we know it was not a mechanical source making that noise. Uh, I don't know what we caught. However, I think it was pretty interesting. Now this next clip, we're going to go back to the ghost box. And again, keep in mind ghost box. Remember when I told you that we are going to disallow any evidence that I don't think was actually made sense? Well, this made sense. Very, very specific sense. Check it out. If that was really you saying Hannah, or if Hannah is here with us, Hannah, could you make a knock for us?
I'm right next to you.
You're right next to me? Now I know some of you would have turned tail and run at the idea that the ghost was standing next to you. What was really interesting, and I don't have it queued up here. Maybe I'll queue it up and show it like in a 5 minutes with Bryan or something. But had a reaction through the ghost box saying, "Could you extend my hand?" to the request that they tap the end of the EMF detector that I had with me, that I carried with me. Pretty fascinating. I guess I don't scare that easily. Who knew? Now, and I've always maintained, and this is from watching other paranormal investigation videos, that you will have situations where a person will ask a question, record response. What happens is sometimes you don't hear it with your ear, and sometimes you pick it up later on. Well, that's what happened here. I'm asking something along the lines of, where were you born? Where are you from originally? And the first time when I was asking the question, I paused, and there's a good pause, and then you'll hear noise. It sounds like a talking. It sounds like a human voice trying to respond. We didn't get a clear response to really any of these questions that we were asking, but that's okay. That's not necessarily what this was about. This was about getting some sort of reaction to the questions that we were asking, and I think we accomplished that here. So anyway, check out this video. I think, or check out this piece of audio. Tell me what you think. Can you tell me where you're from originally? Where were you born? I, Again, I have no idea what they're saying, but I thought it was really interesting that we got that response. Again, we didn't hear it with our ear, with our naked ears, so it was something that we picked up later on when we went through the recordings. Now, I should point out that this next is actually a ghost box response that we got while we were up in sort of the gambler's wing for a period. It was the nurses' quarters, but it was also where the alcoholics, people being treated for alcoholism, lived while they were there at the facility. I think this next clip is it's a little creepy, um, and I don't know. I'm not exactly sure how how. Well, I'm not exactly sure. Take a listen, decide whether you would turn tail and run afterwards, because the clip I have coming after this, if this one doesn't freak you out, the next one will. Okay, check it out.
Just the device.
I took my last breath here.
Wow.
I took my last breath here. And now I should also say that that was a little bit into a question and answer session we had on the floor with the alcoholics and the gamblers. And so it was really kind of fascinating to get that kind of specific response to the questions that we were answering. Somebody was telling us that if the ghost box was accurate, was to be believed. Again, grain of salt, right? There should always be a certain healthy degree of skepticism when you're investigating the paranormal. By the way, I'll always tell you that because if you have that healthy degree of skepticism, it's going to allow you to make sure you are thinking critically about what you are hearing. Not everything's a ghost, not everything is. So, anyway, now I promised you something truly scary. Uh, when I first started processing all of the audio, there's quite a bit of audio to get through and quite a bit of pictures and everything else. So I'm flipping through the audio and I'm listening, and I came to this little piece of evidence here. Of course, when I get it in, I usually have to clean things up a little bit. And I did clean up this piece. You get rid of some background noise and stuff like that. Um, but this stood out so much. When I heard this the first time, it made me stop what I was doing and go to bed. I'm like, that's enough. That's enough for tonight. I'm going to go to bed. We didn't hear it because we didn't react to the noise in any way when it happened. We didn't go running to investigate a noise. It only shows up on the recording itself. I should also point out that I have a very high end voice recorder that I use for recording interviews when I'm out on the road. So the quality is really, really good of these recordings. So, anyway, listen, make up your minds. Probably don't listen to this part just before bed, it might keep you up. But then again, this piece and the finale piece, I think, are gonna spook you out a little bit. But that's my intent. I'm a horror writer. It's what I like to do. Um, I labeled this little piece of digital wonderment, WTAF. Yep. Anyway, take a listen. Tell me what you think. Or was that earnest? So again, you may want to go back and listen to that. It sounds like a screech. You'll have to take my word for it because you weren't there, gentle listener, unless you're Bryan or Thomas listening to this, and then yes, you were there. There, that was absolutely that was a screech of some sort. Um, it was enough to make me go, yeah, I'm done. I'm done for today. I'm just gonna go to bed. But only slightly less than what you're about to see. So this is the last clip I have for you tonight. It was caught by my son, Thomas Nowak. He gets all the credit, not me. You're going to see two versions of the same video. Now, the first video, you're going to see him panning. It's in real time, so you're going to see him panning. He's got his phone out, and he's panning like this, okay? Um, so let me preface this. Um, So there's Thomas taking the video. My friend Bryan Grover, he was to Thomas's left and in one of the rooms, like off to the side. So he was nowhere near the shot. I was directly behind Thomas, and as Thomas was panning, I was moving behind him so I could make sure I was not in the shot because I didn't want to be. I wanted him to get a good clean shot. We're all wearing headlights. We all have flashlights with us. Um, this shot's actually pretty impressive. The first time it goes through, I'll even tell you where to look. As it's panning through, you'll see in the doorway. Now, what you're going to see is you'll see the silhouette of somebody in the doorway, and it's the light from his headlamp. Um, there's nothing that it would have actually cast a shadow on, or would have made a shadow. There's nothing there to really do that. Now I've got another copy, or another video that I'll show right after. It is the slowed down version. We cut it way down so you can actually see that panoramic in slow mo, and you can see what's there. So take a look. You decide for yourselves. I'm not going to tell you what it is for sure. I know what I think it is. I think it's a shadow person. Um, anyway, the grand finale. Now, all things being equal, I have to say that is pretty impressive. Now, I think it's always good to keep in mind that ghosts just aren't going to pop out and say, "Hi, I'm here to talk to you." No, it doesn't really happen that way. How I mean, we can hope, but that just isn't going to take place. And I'd be very skeptical if one did anyway. But I think the voices, the experience with the ghost box, and that video is pretty convincing in my mind to say that the Trans Allegheny Asylum is a haunted place. And again, there is a very compelling story that this asylum teaches. In many ways, it teaches us what can happen when humanity, while well meaning, puts in motion things that aren't good for the betterment of humanity at the end of the day. So, I guess the moral of the story is go out and see the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. Go visit, even if it's during the day and you just want a tour. The story is compelling. The need to restore these places and not let them go by the wayside is there. I think if we do ourselves a major injustice if we don't take the time to really take a close look at these. Now I'm going to put up the link for you in the YouTube video, so you can go check out their website, schedule a tour, at the very least learn about the history and learn about the terrible things humanity has done to each other in the name of science and in the name of health. We have not always been at our best as people, and sometimes we leave scars on the earth that last a very long time. So anyway, that's it for this edition of All Things Writing. I want to thank you for joining me. Yes, we didn't have a book related discussion today, but I really wanted to get all of my paranormal related experiences kind of put down in one place so we can have them to reflect back at, and people can share the link. Please share the link around. I'd be thrilled if you do so. Special thanks to the wonderful staff at the Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. They're wonderful. They do a great job. They manage a Herculean task every night with all these people showing up, want to investigate. They do it very well, and they make it so that people have a chance to do some real investigating and aren't actually falling all over each other. Also, want to thank my partners in crime, Bryan Grover, writer extraordinaire, and Thomas Nowak, soon to be finishing his degree in psychology. So he was kind of fun to have with as well. He also was a huge fan of ghost hunting and the paranormal as well. We had a fantastic time. It's safe to say that we'll go back at some point. And I think you should join us. Who knows? Maybe we'll put together like a whole big event and we'll get everybody to run out there and go ghost hunting. Maybe not. I don't know. All right. Well, that's it for All Things Writing. This is Bryan the Writer signing off.